So many people go through life living in such an apathic way. Do you know what I mean by living life in an apathic way? Living life in a disempowered state. They are of the mindset that they've already lost. It's those people who go through life defining themselves as mental conditions, mental disorders. They are victims. They are hard done by, victims of circumstance, victims of society. Daddy never loved them enough. Mummy never gave them enough cuddles. They've been hard done by, downtrodden. It's kind of like it's the world's fault. Everyone else is to blame why their life hasn't worked out the way that it's gone. And to be honest with you, some people will never leave this place in life. Victim mindset. Some people will die in this. They'll reach their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, still waiting for someone to come along and fix them, to be the Lord and Saviour, to heal them, to point them in the direction, and they'll die having had this person never come along. And it's sad, all right? It's those human beings that grow out of childhood but never grow up. It's those perpetual Peter Pans. Do you know what I mean? Perpetual Peter Pans. It's those kind of like the Lost Boys, the Lost Girls. Do you know the Lost Boys, Lost Girls from the Peter Pan movies, if you've ever watched those great Disney classics? It's those who remain children forever. And if we think that that doesn't happen throughout our global society, we are seriously mistaken and deceived, all right? We can grow in body without growing in mind. We can grow in body without growing in maturity. We can grow in body without growing in any other area, all right? So personal growth, self-awareness precedes all growth. Personal growth equates to all fulfillment, all contentment, all progress, all advancement in life. And here's the thing, until we make a decision to change something about our lives, nothing will change. Some people believe that they can't, and from their perspective, they can't. And no one really will ever go on to care whether they do or whether they don't. If a person believes they can't, that's it, leave them to it. Until the desire to change becomes greater than the desire to remain the same. Those people who want to be victims will be victims. And you'll hear them on the news, you'll see them in the trash tabloids, you'll see them on the trash TV shows talking about how hard their lives have been. And it's not that they're actually ready to do anything about resolving their lives or fixing their lives or even making a positive difference in anyone else's lives. They're still apathically waiting in a disempowered way for a doctor or for a nurse or for a pharmaceutical company or for a hero or a witch or a wizard or an energy healer or a therapist to enter their life and save the day. And some people, as I've mentioned, end up waiting a seriously long time. So it goes without saying that some people are seriously unaware. But the day comes, I used to live life in this way up until probably the age of maybe 26 or 27. I honestly thought that I was a victim. I honestly thought that I could not change. I didn't know. I hadn't yet been educated in the process. So we will not change until we decide that it's time for our lives to change. All right? I had to get to the point where I'd essentially lost the most important relationships in my life through my choices. All right? Through the way in which I was conducting myself. I had pretty much bankrupted myself. I was financially broke. I was almost homeless. I reached a place I was so sick and tired with the way in which I was living my life. I decided I want more than this. I want to live life differently from this. I don't want this to be it. I don't want this to be my life. So I ended up entering into a state of conflict. And this is where I was kind of conflicted with the way in which I'd previously lived my life. I started becoming a little bit more resentful, developing a little bit of bitterness, not just towards me, but also towards those people who I perceived as having wronged me. I hadn't yet reached the stage of awareness or maturity where I was ready to take full responsibility for the part that I'd played in my own demise just yet. I was still pointing fingers, but if you think about it, pointing fingers and blaming other people is significantly better than just being doom and gloom, completely disenfranchised and disempowered in life, blaming oneself, all right? Blaming oneself is significantly different from taking responsibility for oneself. I can take responsibility for me, but if I'm just blaming me, then I'm undermining myself. When I take responsibility for me, I become empowered to change. When I'm blaming me, I'm just beating myself up. I'm entering into the state of pity party. I'm just putting myself down. So conflict is a stage in which many of us find ourselves, especially as we begin this journey of personal growth and advancement. Why? Because we're torn between the old way of doing things, the old way of thinking, and potentially a new way of doing things and a new way of thinking. So the conflict comes when we are starting to identify patterns of believing or patterns of behaving or acting or thinking that aren't serving us. We need to identify those parts of us that we need to kill and get rid of. But the problem is, many of us are creatures of comfort, which means that we don't like change, which means that we also don't like to acknowledge, when we've really screwed up. So it's only when we can start to then identify through this place of conflict, the part that we've played in our own demise, that we can start to say, right, okay, I done that. That outcome that was generated in my life was because of me, was because of a void in my knowledge, a void in my understanding, through a void in my own character, maturity, something like this. I am going to do something about this. And then we start becoming a little bit less resentful, a little bit less bitter. We're not so much blaming other people anymore. We start entering into this place of responsibility. You know what? I can blame other people. I can blame America. I can blame the UK. I can blame the Prime Minister. I can blame Mum and Dad. I can blame teachers. But you know what? The only person who's going to take responsibility for my life is me. And until I take responsibility for my life, ain't nothing going to change. All right? Well, that's it. So when we start seeing that we alone are responsible for generating the outcomes in our lives that we want, we naturally become more forgiving of other people who we thought previously were to blame for our demise, but we can also start to become significantly more forgiving of ourselves. All right? We can say, you know what? I didn't know any better. And it's not like there's any other perfect human beings on the face of the planet. So, what am I going to do? Forgive myself for being imperfect? Well, I didn't ask to be born. I didn't make me this way. I was born into this vehicle that I'm in. I was born into this imperfect condition. I did not invite this. I didn't ask for it. So why don't I just get a little bit better at giving me and my imperfection a break? Why don't I just get off my back here? Because if I learn how to get off my own back, then I might somehow through the process figure out how to get off other people's backs for their imperfections as well. And when we start doing this, we can actually start collaborating with people. We can experience a bit of a power struggle in these stages of our growth with ourselves and with other people. But once we start taking responsibility for ourselves, we can start exercising a little bit of humility. You know what? Our relationship isn't perfect. Here's what I'm willing to take responsibility for. Here's what I can see. Can you see anything else? Could we start collaborating and working together here? My goodness, we might even end up getting a little bit closer. So, as I take responsibility for myself, I actually start to identify I can win. I can win here. Because the more aspects of my life that I take responsibility for, the more aspects of my life I can start winning in. I don't have to be reliant on other people to generate the outcomes that I want in my mental, emotional well-being, in my business, in my finances, in my relationships. I can actually influence the process if I am but willing to learn how. If I am but willing to learn how. So it's an interesting journey that we go through. At some point in our journey, we might even enter into a state of concern. At what point will you have enough insight? At what point will you have learned enough? At what point will you be ready to start sharing what it is that you've learned with other people who could really benefit from seeing what you see and understanding what you understand? For this is essentially the essence of what it means to be an NLP master practitioner. Not just a knowledgeable knowledge person full of knowledge, but a practitioner, a sharer of ideas, a conveyor of good news. Everything that I'm sharing with you now is essentially good news. All right? you have the opportunity to change. The moment that you're ready to, you have all of the resources that you need. You're only one decision away from changing anything about your life. This is some seriously good news, friends, isn't it? All right, it's exciting. Come on. What, we think we need to know master processes and techniques, and we need to understand an entire curriculum to be able to speak influence into people's lives? We don't. All right? All we sometimes need to propose is that life can be better than this. You can be better than this. I know that you can be more than this. I know that you are capable of accomplishing greater things than this. Can I help you? Do you seriously think that influencing people need be any more complicated than this? Because I guarantee you, it doesn't. Honestly. But if we are not compassionate for others, we're not going to care less. All right, of course, our primary goal is going to be, how do I make money? How do I get some more likes on my Facebook page or on my Instagram? How can I get in front of the crowds and influence and impress people with how knowledgeable I am? And that's a crock of nonsense. All right, remember the last teaching. Competency is where it's at. This is essentially what people will trust over time. I've known many people over the years to start businesses as coaches, practitioners, counselors, and they embark upon those kind of get-rich-quick schemes, and they think that, if I just kind of throw some money into Facebook ads and Google advertising, build a website, build my Facebook page, that'll be me, I can build a business. I just want to throw one little spanner into the works for those who are of this way of thinking, and this is that it is one thing to attract the masses, and then it's something else entirely to sustain this level of attraction. So it doesn't take much to draw a crowd. We can just make some noise, make some promises, say some things, and the desperate masses will come a-flocking. But if we want to become influential over time and really develop a tribe or a community or start an organization, then what we need to learn how to exercise is a degree of consistency over time. Because if people do not experience consistency in us over time, i.e. consistent growth, consistent improvement, then they're either going to outgrow us or they're going to see us as being nothing more than loud-mouthed phonies, all right? I'm being honest with you, all right? I'm speaking into your success here, friends. So, reconciliation is the next level of self-awareness, all right? How aware are you? How aware are you of you? Is it even important? Does it even matter? Or is this just an idea that we should maybe write down, take notes of, and try and teach to other people? Well, what I'm going to propose is that unless you are aware of yourself on those 5 levels and how you are living and operating on those 5 levels, you ain't got no value to share. Not yet, anyway. All right, you've got a little bit more learning to do, a little bit more competency to develop, because what we can reach is a stage of reconciliation. When we reach the stage of self-awareness where, you know what? I am flawed and imperfect in every single way imaginable. You know, I'm flawed, I'm imperfect, I screw up, I make mistakes, I slur my words, I'm not a perfect communicator, I'm far from being a perfect teacher, I'm far from being a perfect husband, I'm far from being a perfect friend, son, brother, any of these things. My goodness, I am flawed in every single way. My goodness, I have so much to learn. There is so much that I do not know. I don't even know half of that which I don't even know. All right? It brings us into a place of inner peace, believe it or not, accepting our flaws and failings. Many people go through life on this, love thyself quest. And honestly, it is one of the most empowering and self-centered quests that some people go on. Go on woodland retreats. And where are you going this weekend, Mildred? Oh, I'm going to go love myself this weekend. What are you doing this afternoon, Francine? Oh, I'm going to go take some time, go for a walk and just indulge in some self-love. What? You're really going to go and invest some time into loving yourself? Can you listen to how this might be received by other people? Perhaps a little bit self-centered, perhaps a little bit self-consumed? Some people who are operating from a place of free creation will not find that appealing. I'm just going to love myself for the rest of this year. Dabby-dozy, fantastic. Here's a beautiful thing. When we have accepted ourselves, we don't need to love ourselves. All right? Because guess what? Through our compassion, we can actually go on to love other people instead and just remove ourselves from the equation. Living life in a selfless way is such a gift, and I'm being straight. All right? I removed myself out of the equation of my self-centered life back when I realized that I actually have the choice to do this. So I remain the central point of focus in my life for the rest of my life, or I just simply get me out of the way. I die to the old way, I die to the old attitude, because living life in such a self-centered way hasn't even served me. All it raises my awareness of is all the things that I don't have, all the flaws that I have. Then I end up just beating myself up. Maybe go and get a cuddle from someone or engage in a little bit of self-consumed self-love. Anyone who says, I just need to go love myself, has not yet evolved beyond victim stage. I'm being straight with you, all right? Because the second we reach past the stage of compassion in life, i.e. concern for other people, we become more focused on the level of servitude that we can extend onto others than what it is that we're potentially going to get back from others at large. When we're at peace within ourselves and our flaws and failings, we get over ourselves. We don't need to love ourselves. We don't need to be accepted by other people. We don't need to be loved by other people because we're free to love and give. And I'm not saying this thing in some sort of wishy-washy, mindless, idealistic way. Very, very practical if we want to live effective lifestyles. We start functioning and operating at our more effective when we are no longer our central priority in life. When we essentially just get over ourselves. Many people will never reach this stage in life because they cannot remove themselves from their central point of focus. So when we learn to accept ourselves for who we are, imperfect and flawed, guess what happens? We simultaneously, at exactly the same time, become okay with other people's imperfections and flaws. And this is what means that I can go into a prison, I can go and speak to some people who've really screwed up. I can go and speak to some people who've perhaps, engaged in looting, or murder, or paedophilia. Some people who've engaged in all sorts of lewd and heartless crimes. Not to go in to judge them, not to go in to undermine them, not to go in to correct them and tell them how vulgar they are, but instead to understand them and perhaps become the only person in their life that has ever cared enough to listen. Because every single human being in the world needs this. Compassion bestows compassion. Heartlessness bestows heartlessness. If we wonder why the world is so hard and so cold in so many ways, look at how much compassion is being shared around. It's not exactly coming from the governments these days, right? Build some walls, tear them down, they're different, so shoot them. Come on, this is the message of the masses, isn't it? If they're different, they're bad. Well, that's not what compassion says. It's not what acceptance says. If we're okay with our own flaws and imperfections, then we can't help but to be at peace with other people's flaws and imperfections. To be anything else other than at peace with other people's flaws and imperfections is one of the most rotten expressions of hypocrisy. So we reach the state of holism in life. It's an interesting word, all right, where we simply enter into a state of contentment. I do not need any more in my life than what I have right now. Granted, I might not have everything that I want, but my wants are not a necessity. I have everything that I need. And I'm mightily appreciative of that because many people do not have everything they need in life, which means that I can start to share some of what I have with others. If it will make a positive difference in some way, if it will allow me to positively influence another person in life, in whatever context this looks like, it doesn't make any difference. I remember when Steve Jobs died. I mean, what a genius, wasn't he? Steve Jobs, what he went on to accomplish throughout his lifetime. What did he once say? Those people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are usually the ones who do. And what did Steve Jobs do? He changed the world in his own unique way. But I often wonder, and I don't know, did Steve Jobs take wisdom, knowledge, understanding, insight to the grave? Was there anything that he took to the grave that he didn't pass on? I mean, we're living in a modern technical times, right, where everyone has a camera. Everyone has their own media platform if they want it. Anyone can be a teacher, and many people are being teachers these days, but not all teachers are good, helpful teachers. There are many false teachers out there, like many manipulators. All right, so here's the thing. If we've reached the stage of growth and awareness in life, we have some wisdom to share. And I'm being straight now. You might not have the perfect vocabulary. You might not be the most articulate person in the world. You might not be the most concise. You might not have the greatest hairdo, like me. You might have a Scottish accent or an accent from whatever geographical location you were born and raised and brought up in. But you have some wisdom that you've picked up along the way, which is understanding how to live life in a way that brings you inner peace. Why is it you think that nations go to war with nations? Is it really because nations hate nations? Or is it because of the political leaders who have nothing more than war inside of them? People who are not at peace within themselves are leading our nations on a political scale, have done for how many hundreds or thousands of years? Results in how many people needlessly dying? Right, if it seems like I'm going quite high level here, it's because I am. All right, because I want you to get grounded in this. I want you to wake up to yourself. I want you to step out of whatever level of awareness you're in and into a higher state. Why not? All right, I implore you, come with me. I'm on this journey. It's a cool journey to be on. It really is, I promise. All right. Why? Because if you keep on going, if you're all right with this stuff, and you're all right not being so overly sensitive, and you're okay being offended, you reach that stage of maturity, it's all right for other people not to be perfect because you're not perfect either, you will enter into a place of fire, passion, creativity, and freedom. When you realize that you're only going to be here for so many years, it doesn't really matter whether what you do with your life is perfect or not. You might as well just do your best. You might as well just share what you've learned in your own unique, imperfect way. Because whilst there are millions who may hate you, millions who may disagree, millions who may not like you, there might be one or two who do. And they're the ones that matter. They're the ones that count. They're the ones who could go on to change the world as a result of what you've shared with them. Get that vision in your life. Seriously, act upon it. What else do you want to live your life for? Seriously, make some money, make a name for yourself. For what? Being a phony? Or living a life of free creation? Write a book, create a video, write an article, paint a picture, sing a song, build a business, tell a story, do whatever you need to do. But just share whatever wisdom you've grown in through your lifetime to date with someone. Don't take this to the grave. Don't die too soon before you had a chance of sharing what you've come to learn with others. These are the 7 levels of self-awareness. Do you see that the higher we go, the more we see? When we were down here, what we're thinking about, I've got mental health disorders, I'm stressed, I'm scared, I'm a victim, there's some nasty people out there in the world who are out to get me. What a pathetic way of living life. What a waste of a life, all right? We can mature, we can grow in self-awareness and evolve through the process, shifting our perspective away from what we don't have and upon who we can become for other people. If I strike you as quite a passionate, fire-filled man, it's because I am, right? I really couldn't care less about bestowing upon thee a body of academic notions that you're going to go forget about in 2 years or 2 months' time because they were completely irrelevant to you. If I can impart upon you one idea that you build into your life today and simply action that brings about positive change, then I guarantee that this positive change will be something that you go on to share with someone else at some point in the future. How many steps ahead of someone do you honestly think you need to be in order to influence them positively? 1 mile? 2 miles? 10 miles? 17 years? Nah, rubbish. 1 or 2 steps ahead. That's all you need to be able to influence another person through speaking into their life. Come on, my friend. It's all right. I can see where you're at. I've been there before, but now I'm here. Come with me. Let me show you the way. Let us evolve and step into a new level of life.